go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. My guest today, Trent Mclaren. He is the head of accounting at DiviPay. Trent, how are you?
Thanks, Rocco. How are my friend?
Trent, the rise of digital currencies and assets, quite a big topic at the moment. Let's talk a bit about the challenges in accounting and taxation and like how the landscape looks going forward.
There's a big piece here that is really out of the realm for a lot of accountants. Every country and region is trying to create their own rules on how to tackle and view cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So I think, some accountants are niching into this hard. I've got some really good friends in the UK that have built businesses around this to try and understand and service that market and core of the people. But depending on where in the world, that changes and will continue to change because all these governments don't actually understand how crypto works. That's the thing. They make rules for things that they don't fully understand. And it's not quite right yet at the moment, and it wasn't designed for that, right? Crypto was originally created to avoid boundaries that every country creates.
It's sort of the decentralized dream, right? So one of the things that people are speaking about is like governments basically going to pull the rug on cryptos. But I mean, if they wanted to do that, like China, you have like every year, China bans crypto. No, not really, just regulation and taxation. I mean, to me, it's sort of more policing the on-roads and off-roads into fiat currency than outright banning crypto.
And I think where that changes, because right now everyone's getting into crypto, but then trying to cash out and use that money into their real bank accounts. And that's about the point that these regulations start to have an effect or impact. So I think as the adoption of crypto payments takes place across more areas in everyday life, whether it's retail, hospitality, like, if I can go down the street and pay for a coffee with my crypto, I think that changes everything a lot more. Again, it kind of defunks all the work that these governments are trying to put in place because they have no control over that, right? They can't impact or touch or change those elements. So I don't pretend to be an expert on crypto by any means, but I think it's an interesting space. You're either going to go all in to really understand it and service those clients, or you're going to find someone who's going to do all those things for you and be referring that work to them.
But I don't think so. I think it's so new that I don't think you can outright say and call yourself a crypto expert anyway. I mean, we've seen now with El Salvador adopting cryptocurrency in some other countries, it's basically the largest financial experiment in recent history. And I guess we'll see how they tackle it and see what the roadmap is from there. Definitely.
There's too many that are happy to get on the soapbox and to be a crypto expert. That I've seen a few accountants decide to need in and really become a fully fledged crypto expert and try to service that need that is rising. I mean, in all the Facebook groups I see every other day, there's an accountant asking, how would you guys tackle this crypto? I've got clients asking me about it, but I actually don't know how to give good advice around it. So there's a massive need to help accountants all over truly understand how crypto works right now. If you want to be that person that's going to help educate that segment of the industry, there's definitely a big opportunity there.
That's interesting. Let's shift gears a bit, talk about small businesses. I know you're passionate about small businesses, and one of the big things in small businesses that often get neglected because, they're just busy with other things is accounting. And you being a Rockstar accountant, how do you maybe have like one or two actionable tips that small business owners can look at how to better manage their accounting?
Totally. The first thing I always recommend for a small business owner is don't try to do your own accounting if you don't know what you're doing. So engaging someone rather than later is always better. The part that goes along with that is actually having good data flows. So if you're doing manually using cash, if you're still carrying paper receipts everywhere, and you're not trying to digitize and streamline all your data points, then your accounting is going to be complicated, and your accounting bill is probably going to be bigger than someone else that's got really data flows coming from their website, good expense management systems to keep track of all the information as and when it happens. So my biggest advice is always keep it simple, but try to create good data flows into your accounting software as transactions occur, not relying on you to manually upload it or manually drop off that paperwork to a bookkeeper or an accountant, because you're just adding a bigger bill for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's how things were done. I mean, I think till quite recently, right? It's this big stack of paper sitting on an accountant's desk, and just like, and then nothing seems to, papers get lost, and stuff like that. It becomes sort of like a paperweight on your desk.
Totally. And depending on where you are in the world, cloud accounting, which I'm a big fan of, has different adoption rates depending on where you are. Places like South Africa, where I spent a lot of time, spent nearly a month last year in Cape Town and Johannesburg, living and learning how accountants there manage and work with clients there. It's very different to how they do it in Australia, not too different to the UK. And in the US, it's a different ballgame altogether because they're still using checks and so forth. But the biggest consistency is how do we streamline and create really nice data flows from the point of a payment or our supply bills? How do we put good processes in place that help us create all of that information seamlessly and automatically where possible?
I really like that, because I mean, for put in simple layman's terms, is if you don't know what you're doing, just go find an expert.
100%. I mean, you can try and Google it and get on YouTube and try and figure it out. It'll only get you so far. You've got to engage in it at some point. The sooner you can afford to do that, the better. I think the accountant and the bookkeeper are, two of the best functions you can have in your business when you can afford to have them.
Completely agree. Trent, before I let you go, accountants are perceived as introverts. It's a bit of a generalized statement, but I think that there's truth in it. Yet personal branding is so important these days in finance. You've managed to differentiate yourself, I would say, from your peers and in the industry, and you've created a very strong personal brand that you've managed to leverage into, it seems, every company that you go to. And now, I mean, DiviPay is absolutely shining all across my LinkedIn profile in the work that you do. So what advice do you have for not necessarily your colleagues, but people in the finance industry? How you went about building your personal brand and just leveraging that into your business or into your occupation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think personal branding for me is always about telling good stories, and accountants can actually tell the best stories all the time because they come across their clients' businesses that are failing, going broke, or the reverse of that, where they're absolutely killing it and they're adding new team members, they're doubling their staff, their revenue, their profits. Tell those stories. We love good war stories, the good and the bad, and use that as part of your profiling and your social media game, if that's your goal, right? Yeah. My personal branding has allowed me to travel and speak at conferences all around the world because that was something I was driven towards doing. I think accountants, if you're listening, you've got to figure out what do you actually want to achieve by putting yourself out there in the spotlight in the world, and work backwards from that. Figure out what stories and who you want to tell them to, and then practice doing it every single day. I post daily because that consistency keep DiviPay all over your LinkedIn and everyone else's. Because there's always a good story to tell. There's always I heard one today, a client locks a physical credit card in a safe to try and make sure that they've got secure payment processes in place and that not everyone can access that card, right? And you just hear so many things, but that, it happens, and we all kind of know that it happens, but you put it out there the way you do, and everyone responds to it. They get it.
Trent, we're going to leave you there. If anyone of the listeners want to connect with you and check what you're up to, where can they find you?
You can get me on LinkedIn. It's Trent Mclaren. You can get me on Twitter, Trent_Mclaren. Just Google Trent Mclaren, see what comes up. And if it looks like me, feel free to have a click and let me know.
Ladies and gentlemen, the guy is everywhere. Superstar, rockstar accountant, Trent Mclaren. Thank you so much for joining us. To our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. And we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.